Hey everyone, it's Lindsay and welcome to the Dose of Bliss show. You've watched my channel and you love my videos about how I manifest money. So if you're wanting to manifest money, well, you manifested this video right here today because I have lawyer, attorney, Andrew Gordon with me today of Gordon Law Group. Andrew, tell us a little bit about what you do and also what your job has to do with manifesting money.
So I'm an attorney. I'm also a CPA. But what I really do on a day-to-day basis is manage a law firm. And so while I do act kind of as the standard attorney with some of my time, really what I'm doing is running a business. I really see myself as number one as an entrepreneur, and then second as an attorney. Because at the end of the day, practicing law is like running a business. We have to be focused on marketing, on accounting and our bottom line, on press and things like that, all sorts of things that, outside of just the practice of law. So it really is just like running a business.
So before we get into the hacks that I know everybody wants to know to make your money, I want to start with your journey. How did you get started in this field and having your own business?
Sure. So I did my undergrad and also master's at the University of Illinois in accounting. And so I thought perhaps I'd get into accounting, but I always knew that I really wasn't into the idea of just sitting and doing tax returns all the time. And so I went to law school, and I really wanted to try to find a way to combine both the accounting, the business side of things, and then also law, advocating for clients, coming up with strategy, doing all those types of things that really interested me. And so during law school, I was actually working as a law clerk at the IRS, their Office of Chief Counsel. And I thought during law school that was going to be the place that I'd end up. It was a great combination of accounting, law, IRS, cool.
As high as you get.
Yeah. But, just based on timing, this was back in 2012, there were some IRS scandals and the IRS had a hiring freeze. And so my boss at the time said, take some time off after law school. We'll call you back up when we're ready to hire. And so I moved to my parents' basement from my apartment in Chicago. And, after a couple days of sitting in their basement, I realized I can't just sit around. I need to manifest some money, because otherwise I'm going to drive myself insane and I'm going to drive them insane. So I just started posting on Craigslist, figuring out first, what could I do? What services could I offer? How can I make money? And really what it came down to is, what did I have that separated me from others? What, based on my education so far, I just graduated law school, I haven't done anything in real life, so to say, but what can I do already? And so I already had certain experiences during law school at the IRS, and then also just through a program at my law school, helping people with tax issues. So I put up some Craigslist ads and said, hey, if you have tax problems, I'm here to help. And I got a couple bites here and there, and then from there it just kind of grew and grew, and continued the marketing and really just leaning on what my advantages were. Even just starting out, I identified what skills I had, and then also from a marketing standpoint, how could I position myself differently? And the legal field is a field that's been in existence for hundreds of years. But the marketing of the legal profession really hasn't changed. Most people just find attorneys by word of mouth or referrals, but technology has changed. Google, the internet, things have changed. And so I really tried early on to lean on those advantages, what separated me from the attorneys that had done it for 10, 20 years. Perhaps they weren't using technology like I knew technology. They weren't on Facebook, social media, doing things like that. So just finding those different advantages, whatever those may be, and then leaning on those.
So when you were starting out on Craigslist, were you charging people for your services yet, or were you first building some case studies?
So I fortunately had some experience during law school actually working cases. So I was able to have direct experience and knew how to help people. And so I charged. I needed to make money. I couldn't sit in my parents' basement for too long, I had to make money and find a path out without just waiting for the IRS, waiting for a job to present itself to me. So no, I was putting it out there that yes, I charge for my services, but in the beginning, I was doing it very cheap.
Mhm.
I wasn't free, but I was definitely also setting myself apart by doing it under market because to your point, understood the value of experience and that I needed a, uh, almost like a resume of different things that I've accomplished so that when clients come to me, I could demand a premium, demand more money because I've done all these things. So at first, yeah, it was pretty inexpensive just so I could say later on I've done certain things. And one of the other lessons I got, I had in the beginning too, was if I can have the clients come to me, if I can find the business, I'll typically figure out a way to get it done, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. You'd think typically you should educate yourself and then go find the business. Well, early on, I started getting some pretty large cases that candidly, as someone that just graduated law school, I had no idea how to handle and didn't have really the experience to handle. And so what I did is I found other attorneys, some of the best attorneys in certain areas, and said, hey, I have a case, I've got a client. I'm willing to give you all or the majority of the fee, but I want you to show me how it's done. I want to follow along, see how it's done. And after doing a couple of these for free or near free, now I've been trained by some of the best attorneys in how to handle these cases, gotten experience that I would have never otherwise had because I would have never gotten a job at these law firms or I would have never been able to work with these attorneys. But I was able to learn from them and then use that to do it on my own. And then charge people the higher fees because I had this experience before.
I love that you say that because I did the exact same thing when I've had big opportunities. I called somebody that I happen to know. And if you have money, people are going to answer. No one's going to say no to a big sum of money. But that is how manifestation works. You put something out there, and then all of a sudden it all comes to you. You're getting these big deals and you don't have the experience. And a lot of people will be
Mhm.
afraid at that point. But that's the point where you have to figure out how to make it work for you. And I think it's really interesting because I think people will come to this video and we'll talk about actual hacks you can do. But they're going to think, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z with money. But it's really the mindset. How can you be resourceful? If you're going to get money, the money is there for you to take. So how are you going to take it and make sure that the money keeps coming? So how did that turn into, is that like, what was the big point where it turned into your own successful business where you are right now?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest changes was hiring an employee, which is about 6 months in. And that was a really tough decision. And, my first employee was older than me, more experienced. He was an attorney. And, that was a really big decision because now all of a sudden it's not just making enough money for myself, but also for someone else too. And knowing when is it time to do that, and when does it make sense? When am I slowing myself down from growth, from manifesting the money because I'm not taking these risks, taking these steps? So I think, when I had my first employee, and now there's about 9 of us. So, and it's been 7 years. So we've grown steadily since. But I think having that change, I finally then felt like more of a real business, so to say.
Hmm. I love how that happens. And then it just, once you, it's like building a lanyard. I don't know if you made those back in the day where it's hard to start the lanyard, but once you get the start, it continues to grow. So do you notice there's kind of a mindset of people? I don't know if you read the book. There's the book like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and there's kind of like a mindset people have who are not manifesting money and making money versus people who do. What, working with other businesses and people, do you notice that those differences? And if so, what are the differences in mindset that you notice?
Yeah. So, fortunately, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different businesses and individuals, both people that are just starting up, and also businesses that are more experienced. And along the way, there's sometimes they face issues. And, I think the businesses or the individuals even that are more successful have more of a long-term strategy in general, rather than just paying attention to the immediate cash flow. Both are important. you have to be cognizant of your immediate needs, but also what does this mean towards the future? And so a tip that I have out there for those out there is not to incur debt or to limit the amounts of debt you incur, especially in areas such as tax debt, where people sometimes snowball year over year over year, more and more debt, and it's very difficult to get out from underneath that. And one of the other disadvantages of debt is it increases. There's interest.
Yeah.
And so interest is kind of the opposite of manifesting money or wealth, right? You want to be able to generate money passively. That's most people's ideal situation, is that money just grows on trees. Interest is the opposite. It's the tree taken from you.
Yeah.
So, having less of those types of obligations and more of the other types, interest, having money set aside in an interest-bearing account. I have a number of clients that come into large sums of income quickly. You see that with YouTube personalities. Maybe one video goes viral, and all of a sudden they've got a large sum. But that's not to say that that will always be the case. And I think that's kind of something that people fall into the trap of too, is thinking that just because I made money now, it's going to continue forever. So the successful people are planning for the future and realizing that if I put this money aside, if it's $1 million at 5% interest, that's 50,000 a year, or 5%, whatever it may be. It's 50,000 a year I could live off of for free. All different things that create added wealth, rather than just, well, I'm going to take this $1 million and buy a bunch of cars, which are just going to decrease in value. So having long-term strategies, long-term goals, while also being aware of current needs and cash flow.
I love that. And the ways to make money. I find it very interesting that you say the mindset is short-term goals versus planning for the future. That is a big thing I notice as well. And it truly makes a difference, because if you're planning for the future, you know how to handle when a problem happens. We want to be able to know what to do and not have to go into our reserve that we don't have a lot in when there's a problem. We want to have, it's almost like being happy. You want your cup to be overflowing. So if you pour some of the water out, you still can sustain yourself. So what are some other ways to make a passive income, or hacks someone starting out can do with taxes or investments to start making their money make more money?
Sure. So number one, there's no magic pill. There's no get rich quick scheme. There's no, guaranteed 30 days to millions of dollars. If you're looking for those types of things, you're going to have a disappointment, and you're probably going to lose money along the way. So just finding those quick, easy routes typically are not the answer. Instead it's finding something typically that you are either in a better position than others, or that you're better at than the competition, and using that to your advantage. So maybe you have certain skills, or you can advertise certain things. But in terms of actually just receiving passive income without working, I wish I had the answer to that. I'd be doing it every day. But unfortunately, without hard work, there's usually not a route to making instant wealth. But once you've started to do that, then the question is, how do I increase my wealth rather than losing it? And that's key, right? And I think that's the difference. There's the difference between someone that is, oh, I'm just starting out, I need to earn a living, so I'm going to find passive wealth. Unlikely, right? You got to put in the time, the hard work. Instead, if you put in the time, even if you're receiving a modest salary, or you just have a little bit that you could put aside every month after you cover your expenses, then we can start using that for passive wealth generation. And again, there's not the get rich quick answers. I'm not an investment advisor, and I'm not going to provide any investment advice. But typically, if you think you're just going to invest in something and get rich, you're in a high risk position. So just finding stable ways to make more money over time, and sometimes that's investing in yourself. And I should say that too. if you've made money over time, maybe it makes sense to increase your marketing. Maybe that entrepreneurial venture you're thinking about doing, go and do. But investing in yourself is another way too.
And then what about with taxes? Is there anything people can do that's a hack with taxes that the typical person wouldn't know about?
Yeah, sure. So first, I would say budgeting and putting money aside for taxes, because in terms of potential drains on your wealth, paying interest and penalties to the IRS, silly. Why do it? I don't want to pay the IRS tax from the beginning. Why would I want to pay them extra in penalties and interest? So paying taxes on time, which often means budgeting, putting money aside every paycheck, every month, every quarter, so that you have the money to pay your taxes when the time comes. That'll allow you to have more money in your pocket at the end of the day. You don't have to pay interest and penalties, more money for passive investments. So that's number one. Number two is if you're an independent contractor. And what I mean by that is typically anyone that receives a 1099, or you just have your own business. You're just operating, doing something for profit. You're considered an independent contractor. In these cases, again, someone's not taking money out of your paycheck, but in many cases, it'll make sense to form an actual separate business, form an LLC, because there are some tax strategies. You can actually save money in taxes later on by becoming an S Corp. But one of the things that very few people know is you can start as an LLC, have very few additional requirements, few additional costs, and later on become an S Corp, which is a more complex structure. But the simple thing for you to know is you save a little bit on taxes. So big picture, S Corps, you save a little bit, but they have more work to do. So start as an LLC early, sometimes right away, and have all your income go to your LLC, and they'll put you in a better position in later years, or even in that year, to take advantage of tax saving strategies.
I love that. And it just sounds like the similar thing is have a long-term plan. Just always have a plan for where you want to go. And the rest seems to fall into place. You can't just think I'm going to get money tomorrow. During that process, there will be days, and it does pop up tomorrow. I'm sure it's happened to you, and it's happened to me. As you said at the beginning, you put it out there and all of a sudden you started getting these huge cases with a lot of money involved in them. But it is because you thought of the long-term plan and you knew what to do with it that now today you're not struggling in your parents' basement. You have a successful business where now you're helping other people with 9 employees. And that's kind of how you get from one to the other. And it's taken you about 7 years to get to where you are today. And obviously, 7 years from now, hopefully we can do another interview and, you'll probably be like Mark Cuban.
I can only hope.
Yeah, hopefully. And I'll be like Lori, we could be on Shark Tank together.
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left. What's the biggest advice you want people to know? Or something that you've heard?
So I think it's planning, and just budgeting. I think those are huge pitfalls, but also can be huge advantages to you as well. So don't just shoot from the hip, but if you're starting a business, write down your ideas, your plan. It doesn't have to be anything formal, but get those ideas down, figure out your timeline, figure out your goals, and then shoot for them. And you may not always reach them, and it may not always work, and you may have to revise that business plan or that timeline. You may have to crumple it up and throw it in the garbage and start all over, but that's okay. But having that plan puts you in a much better strategic position than just going and seeing what happens. And that applies to business as a whole. That applies to things like tax, finances. Know where you want to go, and then figure out how to get there.
Yes, just like going on vacation, you plan the destination and then you book the trip to go there. And that's the recipe for everything. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your tips. I feel even more inspired to manifest money. I hope everyone watching does as well. Can you let everyone know where they can find you?
Sure. The easiest way is on Twitter. Our Twitter is @accounting, just @accounting. Also our website, gordonlawltd.com.
Andrew, he shares interviews and videos. Where can people find that? Is that on Facebook, your website?
that will be all over our website, Facebook, Gordon Law Group. Yeah, we have interviews with business leaders, business owners, sharing tips. And Lindsay, you'll be on it soon too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm gonna be on it. So once that is live, I will share it across all platforms, and it will permanently be linked below in this video so you can see some of my tips as well. Thank you, Andrew, so much for coming on the show today. It was a pleasure to have you here. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you next time with your next Dose of Bliss. Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay.